Niko, in my hotspot videos, how many times have I mentioned the concentration camps that Israel is deploying? In fact, when I was in KU, that's something I mentioned. I feel like when you talk about this issue, this genocide that we are sponsoring, our government sponsoring Israel is carrying out, you have to talk about the concentration camps. How is that not being brought up? And CNN is just now getting to it, but we covered this for a long time. So I'm going to play the video first, and I'll pass it to you guys for your general analysis. This is one of a few I have here. Once again, great content in Hotspot. Always got great receipts. So this is from Hotspot, posted on our account. You can find it at Hotspot. People having a hard time finding it. You got to type it in essentially twice, just letting you guys know. So let's watch this video, and then I'll pass it to you guys.
Using details from Israeli whistleblowers, CNN has recreated the inside of a field hospital at a military facility where Palestinian detainees were held in brutal conditions. Medics say up to 20 patients lay virtually naked, blindfolded, with hands and feet shackled to their beds and wearing diapers. Treatment one worker told us amounts to punishment.
It's the idea of total vulnerability. If you imagine being unable to move, being unable to see what's going on, that's something that borders, if not crosses, into psychological torture. So yes, I think it does infringe human rights.
The Israeli military says prisoners are handcuffed based on their risk and health status and are stripped for security checks, adding that investigations are opened when there's suspicion of misconduct. Using
So I want to pass it to the panel first because I've been talking about this a lot, and this is why Israel must be stopped. They're trying to redefine what is acceptable terms of engagement. They're trying to redefine international law. So I'll pass to Misty first, and then we go to Niko for your analysis.
They've been doing this shit for decades. Decades. Thank you, CNN, for finally covering what's been happening to the people of Palestine for literal decades, assholes. However much you hate mainstream media, it's not enough. Trust me, it's not enough. When I saw this shit, I like my blood boils because I've been talking about this for fucking years, and I'm not alone. Vanessa Beeley, Eva Bartlett, there's a whole host of people who've been out there calling attention to what's going on to the people of Palestine for years. They go and they're all talking about these hostages, right? They've been taking Palestinians hostage, including hundreds of kids every single year for decades, and it's a completely different legal system. It's a military legal system. There's no charges. There's no there's nothing. There's no due process. And then they're just held indefinitely in Israeli prisons with no charge, no cost, no way to get out of it. And it's just ridiculous. And again, like this is not new. This has been happening for so long. And the idea that CNN is just now finally covering it. Imagine what would have happened had CNN been covering this all along. Do you think we would be in the situation we are in now? No. And that goes back to what Julian Assange said. Every war is a result of media lies. And this is a great example of that.
And this is my retort to people that say that Israel can do whatever they want because October 7th, ignoring the fact that there's no like exception and war crime for revenge. It's like, okay, if you want to say that, you guys understand that Israel often kidnap children, women and children, and have them in detention without a trial. So based on your terrorist ideology, as I called out in my KU speech, based on your terrorist ideology, Hamas should be doing October 7th every day. Niko, I'll pass it to you.
So my hotspot video today that's going to come out is talking about this investigation. And one of the angles I'll discuss is the specific nature that the wounded are treated. So they're strapped down, according to the whistleblower, the Israeli, which, by the way, I always say, bro, you know, the shit's got to be bad when an Israeli whistleblower comes out.
Yeah.
Because they don't give a damn about, they don't even like these Palestinians. Like, one of the dude even, like, he says, like, that he's just as angry about October 7th and Hamas horrible. Like, he qualifies almost all his statements with that. But like the way that these particular Palestinians are being treated is so horrible that that Israelis turn to whistleblowers. So you know it's bad. But when the wounded arrive and they're quote unquote treated, they're tied to the bed. They're handcuffed, to the bed, stripped down completely. And the goal is to strip them of their humanity. That's literally what the whistleblower said. They're given a diaper, then they're blindfolded for whatever treatment that they might receive. And they make sure that the operation, as painful as possible, that without anesthesia, and really it's kind of not even important if that person lives or dies, because it's almost as if their wound is being used as an excuse to put them to that pain. And he said the reason that they're okay with doing so is specifically because of what happened on October 7th. That's the justification that they're using. But what's worse about all of this is that, like Nick said in the beginning, they are actively trying to redefine the outline rules of engagement, which say that if you are treating, because they're saying it's not true, but they're saying that everyone they've taken in since October 7th is a terrorist and therefore is a combatant, quote unquote. But the moment that you take them in to treat them, the Geneva Convention dictates that their wound supersedes the adversarial nature of their side of the war. So you have to treat them as if they are Israeli. And instead, they are being treated worse. I mean, like it's literally psychological torture. You don't know what's happening to you. You can't understand what's going on, and you're being blindfolded and being put through pain. You have no idea if they're trying to kill you or trying to save you, and because they probably don't. They probably are deciding within the moment what they're trying to do to you. Like they're literally trying to redefine international law, or rather, they're stepping on international law, and no one is. I mean, the reaction to, in my opinion, is not enough. Like that's the biggest problem with this whole thing is like, okay, so they're breaking international law in front of everybody, and no one's going to do anything about it. Like, what's the point of the Palestine vote? That's my thing. I'm glad that people are voting for them to be a state, but what the fuck is the consequence now for messing with that state?
Yeah,
Niko, have you seen the arguments? I've seen a few, like the Fox News segments that have been coming out for the last few weeks are some of the hardest segments to ever stomach. I've been watching a lot of corporate media over the last 2 years.
It's so bad.
It's one of the hardest news segments to stomach. You can't even get through them. They will have people on their shows that say, why should Israel feed the Palestinians? They're at war with them. Because your grandfather generation decided it's something we should do in war. Like the ruling class now is so psychotic. They are now second guessing the decisions that their grandfathers made.
Yeah. Also, nobody even the problem is too. We're not asking y'all to feed Israel. We're asking to let other people give aid. Excuse me. We're not asking y'all to feed the Palestinians. We're asking you to not disrupt the aid that's going to Palestine. We don't even expect you to feed them because we know how Israelis are.
They just poison the food. Listen, collective punishment is bad. I don't know why that needs to be explained to grown-ass adults. Collective punishment is bad. The children of Palestine have nothing to do with this. Not a damn thing. They are as innocent can be. They are children. And the idea that these motherfuckers, psychopaths, out here destroying aid meant for children, women and children who have nothing to do with Hamas. Like these, and listen, just to be clear, Israelis have been brainwashed. This is not an accident. They have been programmed to be this psychopathic, period. And that needs to be understood. People need to understand how malleable the human brain is and how easy it is for people with nefarious intentions to use that against us. And this could not be a greater example.
Yeah. Look at this headline. To your point.
Oh my God, fuck this guy. Fucking Epstein's buddy.
We're seeing the West in complete
he really doubled down that interview. He really doubled down those comments from that interview that he did. Wow.
He always doubles down. He's a scumbag.
He gonna say the dumb shit and then write about an article about the dumb shit he said.
Yeah, he did.
Wow.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
bro, we're seeing the West and especially the ruling class, an emphasis on the ruling class in the West. They're rebelling against the concept of international law. They're rebelling against the concept that the law applies to them as they call us criminals and thugs, as they weaponize the police on our communities because they said we need strict law and order. They use law and order on our communities. And then white America, we don't need law and
order. Whatever happened to that? I'm
right?
Because, if rules-based order don't seem to work, if the rules-based order countries ain't really following the rules-based order. That's what it's starting to look like. Right? That the rules-based order countries don't actually have control over this one guy.
Law and order for thee, but not for me. That's exactly what that is. The hypocrisy is astounding. It's amazing.
You gonna have, you were a hypocrite if you like a hypocrite to the other hypocritical nations, bro.
Yeah.
Like You're making the shitty nations
so
look
true.
bad
Yes.
because you're just that shitty.
And we do that with so many things. Remember when the president of Azerbaijan called out the BBC reporter? She was like, "Oh, you're really mean to journalists," and he's like, "Oh yeah, how about Julian Assange, bitch?"
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and we do. It's everything. Like, we think that we are the world's policemen, and it's fine if we do it. But if you do it, listen, we're going to invade your country, overthrow your leader, and install a puppet dictator and take your resources. How about that? That's what we do.
Western journalists get cooked all the time I call it the global majority. I need to start correcting myself. I used to say global, so I admit that I used to say that word too much. The term we need to start using global majority. I was reading about that. Like, damn, that's what we gotta call it, because we have the global majority that is looking for de-dollarization and resisting the United States empire because of the contradictions. I explained before, there are a lot of kind of dumb social democrats in Europe that fell for the Ukraine war propaganda, that wanted to kill and destroy Russia because they heard Western talking points about how they stand for human rights. They're like, you had Anthony Blinken and Victoria Nuland, like, well, Putin is doing in Ukraine, killing civilians. It's a war crime. This is awful. Dumbass social democrats in their history was like, yeah, it's so awful. And they teamed up with these people.
Dude, if you're an American, if you are an American, you need to just shut the fuck up. Are you joking me? Clean your own house first. The United States of America is the world's largest terrorist organization, period. It's not even close. And so until you get your house in order, you have no moral authority over anyone. You don't get to finger wag at literally anybody. We are the worst. Just shut the fuck up. Shut up. Just shut up.
When they call him a dictator, like when they try to start because they always say he's a dictator who did a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And then I'm like, hold on, don't he have like a whole legislature? Because whenever I hear dictator, I always like, oh, let me learn about their political system. I'm like, hold up, we got a whole legislature? Damn, they got elections? Like, they have elections often?
They're republics. China, they're republics. And then an election, on that thought, Niko, because remember, you saw about like 88%, and all the coverage on MSNBC and CNN was like, well, yeah, he won by 87% because it's a fake election. Hold up. I thought you said the 9 election was the worst thing that you could do, right? Yeah. Go ahead, Niko.
All right. Hey, don't get me started on that shit. Don't get me but the other thing I do is I check out how many examples of like reports of corruption at the local level elections. Like if there's not a bunch of local level not a bunch of allegations of local level corruption, 9 times out of 10, the presidential election, especially foreign countries like outside of the US, is reflective of the results of the local elections. So, for example, like when the reason that Maduro keeps winning in Venezuela is because the Socialist Party at the legislative level keeps winning all over the country, which means that he is actually reflective of the party that is winning and the people that are voting in that party. So Putin wouldn't be in power as a president, and also I think he's winning because they just he makes them feel safe. That man, I used to think there's no such thing as 5D chess or 4D chess in politics until this motherfucker Vladimir Putin showed up on the scene. That he can predict America's stupidity 5 years in advance at bare minimum. Maybe because they are that stupid, but that's what he does. But he makes people feel safe. Go ahead.
Sorry, Niko, but people like there's a lot of progressive with Russian derangement syndrome, like Cornball West, Bernie, and all those people. Russia got all the policies that they fight for. And no matter what you feel about Putin, it's an objective fact that ever since Putin got in charge, quality of life of Russia has skyrocketed. Yeah. Russia stayed in geopolitics, has skyrocketed. And that's just a fact, guys. And that's why Russia fuck with him.
Yeah.
I don't like any world leaders. Even more disdain for these politicians that my good friend Joe Biden. Right? I'm like, because this person that you supposedly hate if he didn't help push these policies, he damn sure didn't stand in the way while they were being passed.
Yeah.
And you got Joe Biden over here actively working with both parties to stop these type of policies that you supposedly support from getting enacted. And you're like, but my good friend Joe Biden, but Putin the dictator. Please.
Putin's bad. But Joe Biden's fine. It's so disgusting. And also, again, on the issue of elections, once again, if you're American, shut the fuck up. Our elections are a joke. Our elections are a fucking joke. And clean your own house first. You don't get to finger wag at somebody else when your country is a shit show. I'm sorry, you just don't. You do not. You don't get to do that.
As I said many times before, and I will continue to say it till I die, the biggest cowards on the face of this earth are the people who live in the most violent empire in modern human history, the United States
And point
empire,
fingers
in
elsewhere.
coalition with UK, Israel, and others. You in coalition with France, and after France, what they did in Africa in 80. But you look at other countries. You look at Russia. You look at China. You look at DPRK. And guys, and my caveat always is, because I've never been to those countries, so I will never pretend to be an authoritarian figure on these countries. My caveat is these countries are never perfect. But your ass living in the most violent empire ever known to man need to shut the fuck up and focus on holding your government accountable.
Yeah, I'm not
and
Russian.
People who don't are cowards. Go ahead.
I'm not Russian. Listen, I have no influence. Listen, I have very little influence in my own country, but I certainly have no influence in Russia. Why the fuck am I going to worry about what Russia's doing? Let Russia worry about what Russia's doing. Worry about your damn self. Like and I think it's honestly, it's desperation. Like people recognize how awful it is here and they don't know what to do about it. So they're like, oh, but that guy's bad. Yeah, listen, I don't like Vladimir Putin. I don't like any world leaders. You cannot reach that level of power without being kind of a psychopath. I say that all the time.
That's kind of true. That's kind of true.
None of them. You can't trust any of them. You cannot reach that level of power without being willing to do some really awful things and exploit a lot of people. And that's just facts. So I don't like Vladimir Putin, but I'm also not living in Russia. So I don't give a fuck. I'm worried about what my country is doing. And it's Americans, they're incapable of self-reflection. And it's just so frustrating.
Well, that's all. So we live in a country where we are conditioned to be distracted, right?
Yes.
We live in a country where we're conditioned to scapegoat.
Yes.
We live in a country where you're conditioned to be distracted. So what I mean by that is whenever there's a problem happening in your household or in your friend group or with you personally, you're told to look over there. So like we got all these problems that are happening in the US. So I got to focus on Vladimir Putin. That's what that must mean. No, doesn't that mean you focus on your politicians? No, because you literally have journalists who know more about the personal and public and political life of Vladimir Putin than they know about their own president or Congress people.
Yes.
Because like that's what they've been told, because he's the threat to U.S. democracy, not the politicians here. They know more about they think they know more about what's happening in China than they know about what's happening in the US because they're the threat. They believe that the threat is some far off distraction way over there.
A boogeyman.
Like the situation is so bad in the US. Not one time they think, maybe I should look around my own crib because
your own government is actively stripping you of your rights. Your own government right now is actively stripping you of your rights, and you're worried about Putin. Focus, motherfuckers. Focus. Okay.
And don't get me wrong. If I felt like Putin was I don't even feel like Putin's in the wrong for because I'm like, well, if you're defending innocent people, because innocent Russians were being bombed by Nazis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you're like, well, he's invading because they're innocent Russians being bombed by Nazis. Well, isn't that what he's supposed to do?
For 8 years.
I told you guys I'm anti-imperialist.
Yes.
I am not a pacifist. I am against
not pacifist at all. Yeah, exactly.
That anti-war shit.
So you're telling me another country giving my adversary, my superpowered adversary, is coercing and paying and corrupting this government so that they're now killing innocent people who fly my banner and believe in me as a president. Because like in Crimea specifically, they voted to be a part of Russia. So like there's that. So like, and I'm just supposed to let them die? Like what the hell? So,
and for 8 years, Niko, this is not like Ukraine just woke up one day and started bombing some Russians, and Vladimir Putin just like flew off the handle. This was happening for 8 years.
The patience. It's the level of patience he's had for all that. Like, come on, bro.
And the warning he gave
that more than the fucking democracy that's following. Like that, not crumbling. It's already crumbled. It doesn't fucking exist. U.S. democracy does not to the point where literally everyone has to you have to say every time. Sorry, every time you talk about the election. You have to start out by saying, now, if our elections were legitimate, this is how you would analyze it. Because the truth is, we all know that the likelihood of our elections being legitimate is fucking zero at this point. It is zero. It might be legitimate. I don't care if whoever won and it was supposed to win, someone still tried to cheat. Mm-hmm. Someone got cheated somewhere. Mm-hmm. That president may have overcome the cheating from because he was able to cheat better, or his apparatus was able to cheat better.
It's really who cheats better, yeah.
But the senators at the state level, the Congress people, the assemblymen, the delegates, even they were somebody like, bro. For example, how the hell does Lindsey Graham keep getting in power?
right? Corrupt as fuck. It's all corrupt as fuck.
I got a crazy
all the
video
way
on
through.
him. Go ahead, Misty.
Oh no, Lindsey Graham can get. Don't even get me started. Yeah, but our elections are like the electoral.
South Carolina in 2020.
Huh?
Did Joe Biden win South Carolina?
I don't pay attention to electoral politics. Why are you asking me? I don't know.
Because that would be like that would kind of be my point. Is like if and I can't remember exactly if he won, but if he won or even came close to winning, because that's South Carolina, he should be nowhere near winning. But somehow he wins that. But Lindsey Graham also wins the Senate. That doesn't make any sense.
It's a joke. Oh, and listen, the idea that our electoral process, as far as the presidential level goes, ended us with Joe Biden and Donald Trump as the two options presented. Your system is broken. If that's the two final choices, you need to fucking burn it down and start over. That is horrendous. There's 350 million people in this country, and the best we could come up with is Joe Biden and Donald Trump. No.
As we witnessed everybody like getting knocked down like Don, we were like, hold up. So we really about to like because at the beginning you were at least optimistic like, well, damn, at least it ain't gonna be Joe Biden and Donald Trump because that's a fucking ridiculous notion. That would never happen. Come on, I got more faith in my countrymen than that. And you get to fucking 2020 and we in April and we like motherfucker, it is really Joe
and we're gonna
Biden.
do it again.
It's South Park. In South Park.
Yes, I would rather enter into any grocery store anywhere in the country, go to the bread aisle and just grab the first person I see and say, you're the president, than either of those two options. Literally, I would rather just go get Nancy from the grocery or the bread aisle of Meijer.
Nope, too close to Pelosi. Gotta get the next one. That's too close to Pelosi. You gotta get the next one.
All right, fine.
Can't be Nancy. Can't be Nancy.
I don't care. Kevin, I don't give a fuck. Whoever
Kevin
it is,
works.
it's better than Joe Biden or Donald Trump, period.
Oh, Kevin too close to McCarthy.
All right.
Let's go with
Niko.
Let's go with I like a Niko. I think Niko would be a good guy. It's like a really solid, strong name. I feel like it'd be a good leader.
Dude, my 13-year-old would make it president.
Matilda ain't never fucked the country up. That don't sound like the name of somebody who fucked the country.
No.
Let's go with Matilda.
Matilda, I like Matilda. That's like a solid, like strong.
Yeah, like Matilda. If I found a Matilda in the grocery aisle, I'd definitely trust her more to run the country than Joe Biden. Absolutely, 100%.
Totally.
So
I would trust
to
almost
speak about why we don't take electoral politics seriously, unless there's a tip to overthrow it, is because you have Boeing, Raytheon, and APAC that haven't lost an election in how long? They undefeated
like Mayweather out here.
These motherfuckers Floyd Mayweather of electoral politics. Name me one election that Boeing and Raytheon lost.
No matter what. Yeah, it's bad.
You have APAC openly bragging about rigging every fucking election we got going on right now. They be on Twitter like we 40 for 40.
And the people who support this shit breathlessly freaked out about Russiagate and Russian interference. Oh my God, there's foreign interference in our elections. Y'all, it's been Israel the whole time. The call's coming from inside the house. It's coming from inside the house.
For years.
Yes.
But China's influencing our bro. What's crazy is you got China. There's entire committees dedicated to trying to figure out how China is interfering with our elections, and APAC is literally like, "Hey, bitch, we're undefeated. They're
bragging.
You don't even need to do a political committee. You want us to put a political committee together? We don't need it, bro. Hey, 100% success rate."
Blinken tells CNN the U.S. has seen evidence of China attempting to influence.
Bro, y'all know what APAC really quick.
Once again, the evidence is trust me, bro.
Did y'all see that video of that girl on TikTok that was exposing like all the husbands like for having a side piece? Did y'all see that? That's what she was bragging on TikTok to expose all these husbands that were using her as a side piece to show how ain't shit guys are. Okay. Yeah, and that's basically what APAC does every single day, and like no one cares. Well, no, everybody cares now, but but what's crazy is like this isn't new behavior from them. That's what's crazy. It's like the fact that y'all been talking about foreign interference for so long and how important it is that we combat it, and APAC has been bragging about it. Y'all like, well, it's different. That's my side piece. It's a little bit different. You know?
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
So you had Blinken saying the U.S. seen evidence of China attempting to influence upcoming election because you guys know the empire worked in two different factions. You have the conservative faction of the uniparty war machine, and then you have the liberal faction of the uniparty war machine. So when it comes to selling war to Republicans, you don't have to do shit, bro.
No,
they already look different.
They've
been ready to go to war with China forever, bro.
Yeah, they don't care.
War?
Where? Let's go. Like that's generally, we should say generally, because listen, I know some right-leaning people, especially my libertarian friends from like antiwar.com, and they are some of the
I'm talking more about the Republican establishment. Absolutely, I agree, Misty.
Yes.
The Republican establishment and their enablers, meaning their voters.
Yeah.
They are easily convinced to go to war with anyone. With liberals, you gotta interject cultural imperialism. And now because of Trump, because of January 6th, the CIA and Pentagon, they got a golden goose election. Because they got liberals to hate Russia because Putin is getting involved in our elections, remember? So now they're like, hold up. We got a way to get liberals to hate China now. Hey, let's spread a story out there saying China trying to get involved in our election. Now Joe Scarborough, MSNBC, like, what the fuck did Xi Jinping do?
Yeah. China has always been the final boss, by the way. Like Russia was holder for a while because we already had that kind of built-in suspicion thanks to the Cold War and all that stuff. So they needed that enemy. They needed that boogeyman in the 2015, 2016 era. So Russia was an easy placeholder for that. But China has always been the final boss for us. Just twisted. That is the final boss. Like that's who we're really, really after.
I always ask. So if you're going to use this argument, China is trying to influence the election. What would they have to gain out of curiosity? I'm genuinely curious because
all of the countries.
We literally deregularized. Then we like NAFTA happened, right? I mean, I'm young, but I'm old enough to remember how we sent all of our shit to China. They didn't even have to ask. They didn't pay off anybody yet. Not like that. Before we said, hey man, we won't send our shit over there. Y'all good with that? Okay, we'll take all y'all economy if you want. Like,
right?
So you know what I'm saying? Like,
Thank you.
What exactly? What more do they? They're already the fastest growing economy in the world. Like they're blowing the U.S. out the water. We owe them more money than they owe us. Right? We owe them more money
have
than
to do
anybody in the world.
And watch us implode because that's what's happening. They don't have to do anything. They just have to sit there and like and laugh at us. That's what all they have to do. But listen, to be fair, I think most countries, major countries are actively trying to interfere with each other's elections on the regular. We know the United States does it more than anybody on planet Earth. We have interfered with, listen, we don't just interfere with elections. We'll go overthrow a whole ass government. Like we do that on the regular. So again, there is absolutely zero room for finger wagging here. Antony Blinken pretending like China is some existential evil because they're attempting to interfere with our elections. If they even are, shut the fuck up, my guy. Like you don't get to complain about that when you're the United States.
We are witnessing the most incompetent managers of the empire ever.
Or are they the most competent managers of the controlled destruction of the U.S. empire?
I hear that, but I don't like that. I don't buy it. And the reason why because like what do the capitalists gain by taking their own system? I think these people are just arrogant.
They're not. They're just redistributing the.
And I'm gonna give you guys an example of what I mean here. You have the United States and Blinken and the Biden administration that's floating the possibility of putting sanctions.
The fuck, my guy? You know I have libertarian friends.
Sorry, I was having Pasta posted up a super chat saying Misty ain't got no libertarian friends. She too mean.
I'm too savage. I mean, I don't think I'm that. Am I that savage? I don't think I'm that savage.
I mean,
I
don't know.
Lions Cosgrove coming on Tuesday. He's a libertarian. We talk about open borders.
I have all kinds of libertarian friends. Pasta knows that. He's friends with the same fucking people. Shut the fuck up, Pasta. Shut the fuck up.
Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
But like I was saying, the reason why like there's this arrogance that these people have with their ideology that they were going to use sanctions as a way to control the global economy. They believe that they can cause populations to panic and overthrow their leaders. And now by the Blinken, because you have 120 of the world's countries that said China is their top global trading partner. So in a panic, the Biden administration announced sanctions. So once again, this is why I think they're incompetent. Because why would you do that? Because now, since China has 120 countries that are their leading trading partner, all China has to do is say, we got to trade with the yuan, or what? I know I'm probably mispronouncing that, with the Chinese currency.
No, I think it's pronounced correct.
I think
either way, the Chinese currency.
I think you pronounced it correctly, actually. Yeah.
All China had to do is say, we will take the Chinese currency, and you only have to trade in that currency because of these sanctions. Boom, dollar is dead.
Yeah.
And then I got this segment coming up here very soon. I'm gonna talk to that about this with DD geopolitics. Like this insane ideology that the West have that led to the West losing their influence, their over reliance on sanctions, and because that Russia got prepared, China got prepared, and now when they see Russian businesses and people in Russia having their money stolen by the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars, they're like, man, what if we're the next Russia? So we better start stacking up on the yuan. I think someone's out saying that right, and the ruble, because if we don't, what if the United States make up a reason to start sanctioning us? And now, once again, I think this was a backfire by the establishment because they thought that the Russian people would panic once they put Russian sanctions on them, which will lead to the overthrow of Putin. That didn't happen. You have these people that openly say that we have these theories about having governments being overthrown, which led to these sanctions, which led to de-dollarization. That's one of the reasons why it's the arrogance of the capitalists. And it's just this, I guess, a difference in ideology, because I see the capitalists as very devious, very evil, and people who want to resist Marxist and socialist ideology, they come up with kind of goofy theories that capitalists want to take their own system for no reason. No, it's the arrogance and it's the economic war that capitalists waged on countries because they didn't want to see a rise of a competitor. They didn't want to see a socialist market economy like China rise. So now they got to tank them. That's my talk.
I'll be honest with you, though. I think that the conversations around communism versus capitalism are outdated. I think we are in a technocracy, and we have been for a long time, and the conversation has totally shifted. Those two things, like capitalist, communist, like it's not even about that anymore. It's really not. And I think that unfortunately, it's gonna take a while for people to catch on to that.
The only reason I disagree, and I'll pass back to Niko, is because everything that we're seeing right now was predicted by Marxists, because if you look at class antagonisms, if you look at the way the capitalists operate, they will never allow the rise of a market like China, where they seize the housing markets, they have control of the banks, control of the education. They can't let people see a competitive system to capitalism working.
Ooh, I like this debate. Can I play devil's advocate for everybody?
Yeah, go ahead. This is a little friendly debate.
So I would say, as far as I do believe that they're idiots. So Missy, I think that you're giving them too much credit for being smart enough to like, if they were trying to tank it, these fuckers are so stupid that we would actually have a successful economy. That is how dumb these people are. Like, because what Nick is saying is true, because we saw them, they had zero idea that Russia had prepared 10 years in advance, and they knew that NATO was going to pull some bullshit with Ukraine, so that when they tried to tank their economy, they did what Nick said that China would do. That's fine, bitch. Everybody's going to buy everything in rubles. Suck my dick. Bye-bye. And they cashed out, and the Russian economy is better than it's ever been. So now you fast forward, and they're just doing the same reactionary bullshit with China, not thinking of the consequences, because they're still under this disillusion that they have more power economically or through hard power economy, or through hard power military stuff than China does. And it's just like, it doesn't matter. So on the flip side, Nick, so we say that the US let China become this power, but the reality is that China engaged in capitalism, it's hyper capitalism through hyper deregulation. And that's what NAFTA was all about, because we can't ignore that component of a still communist China, allowing them to basically become symbiotically related to the United States, economically speaking. Like, so there is the reality that they've obviously used the money that they made in a more communistic way, and it's been used to the benefit of the Chinese people. That part, there's really not any disputing. The evidence is there. But the truth of the matter is, in my opinion, China oftentimes hides under a communist banner, but they have so many capitalistic characteristics that oftentimes gets ignored. And I don't think that it's actually right for us to ignore the capitalistic side if we're going to, especially because people, not saying you're doing that, but I'm saying that there are people who are like, no, China should be 100% communist, and that's how they got to this point, because that's not fair, because it's not true. So what Misty is basically saying is you have to focus on the technocracy of it all, because there's something else happening behind the scenes that goes beyond these words. Because like you said, there shouldn't have been a world where, because we know The United States was busting everybody. If you even thought about calling yourself a communist country, it was busting your ass from the end of World War II up until this very moment. Okay, everybody. But China was the exception. Not only are we not going to bust their ass, but we're actually going to actively work to make them the most powerful economy in the world. That doesn't make any sense, right? But on the flip side of it, they're pretending that China kind of goes about acting as if it's completely and totally communist, while kind of leaving out the fact that they engage in hyper capitalism through their deregulation. Like they deregulated the things that we would normally regulate and invited capitalist businesses from the US and other Western countries into their country. They took advantage of that system, and that's how they got where they're at. So it's like we now have to address, like, we got to square that circle. Why were they working so closely? And it kind of, for me, it goes back to what Missy said. Yeah, they might have communist aspects, and the U.S. might have capitalist aspects because they also have communist aspects, but in the reverse, right? Mm-hmm. They take the money from the poor and give it to the wealthy. But the technocracy does seem to be controlling the outcomes more so than the ideologies themselves.
Yeah.
Well said.
That's like the social democratic countries that still exploit the global South to have the things that they have. It's so.
And Misty, I'll give you the last word. I just want.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
We get back on topic because I'm actually greatly enjoying it. This is what the new era is going to be all about: free exchange of ideas, 100%. And what many supporters of the goals and aspirations of the Chinese model and Xi Jinping, what they're trying to do is they are trying to forge their own path to communism and to Marxism using dialectical materialism, looking at what they're currently at right now. Understand that there are market forces that they have right now. There is not the profit motive. And when you look at the building structure, and this is why they call it more of a market socialist, because the Xi Jinping and Chinese communist leaders, they will openly mention, like, yeah, we're not full communists yet. And when you look at the science, there's a path to get there.
They do.
And there are a lot of capitalists who will say, well, you want to start communism, you want to destroy the country. What about this? There's a path there. You don't just snap your hands and there are no capitalists no more. But who controls the means of production? You have landlords that only allowed to have 2 properties in China. If we had the same regulations in the United States that they have in China, you have the entirety of America screaming socialism. Who control education in China? Completely. Who control the healthcare system, education completely? They completely controls and seize the bank in China, which created housing prices to be extremely low. So I'll give you guys the last word, and we can move on. I'll give you guys the last word.
Like the people who are afraid of social, we already have.
But I want to get back on topic too, because I don't want to be like.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Because the point I was overall making, the reason why I think it is ultimately about this ideology of capitalism versus socialism, is because there's no reason for the capitalists to tank their own economic prospects by waging war with China. It doesn't make any sense. It makes more sense for them to invest and to grow with China, but it's an ideological struggle because they don't want to see people. See an example of a country where landlords are not allowed to dominate, where banks are allowed to be private. So that ideological driver is one of the main reasons why many of these Western leaders are willing to tank their own countries by engaging in sanctions against China. We told you guys that's what's completely ridiculous for the West to do, but there's an ideology behind it. And when you ignore that, you make up theories that don't really make sense. At least to me, where you say they want to take their own wealth. That just doesn't make sense. But I'll give you guys the absolute last word and we move on. Niko, and then I'll give you guys the last word.
I'm good. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, no, I mean, it would. So, I mean, I guess that would be like capitalism and I mean, as we know it, because it would actually make sense for them to take their own economy. I know that sounds stupid, but it would, because most capitalists don't give a shit about the rest of they don't give a shit about the economy. They love when the economy tanks. That's when they make the most money. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? Like, which would go back to, so in my opinion, that's also what goes back to the technocracy, because that also, once again, like you said, that's why it doesn't make sense, right? Because the only people that would benefit are the ones who are already wealthy. They love when the economy tanks because the wealthy don't stop being wealthy because the economy tanks. That's when they start investing. You buy low and you sell high. So what we're seeing based off what you're describing is that that they would be selling high. But then you get back to the same problem that I was just describing. But then why would you help your greatest enemy while doing that? If it was communism exclusively versus capitalism exclusively. So I feel like that is a conversation that has to be had. It's because for some reason that discourse makes people's brains break, right? Yeah, that needs to be reconciled. Because
I think there's a legitimate. Guys, I don't want people to misunderstand. I'm not like trying to like ban shield for China or anything. I am impressed with how they lift people out of poverty. I love how they invest in infrastructure.
Yes, undeniable.
I think their central planning model is superior. But there is legitimate criticism. Well, you guys want to hear criticism I have? I think they're funding the Zionist project is kind of unacceptable. And China and China has a position where they're like, we don't impose our will on the country, which is good in a lot of cases, like in Africa and South Africa. There's no cultural imperialism. But when it comes to Zionist genocide, yeah, you got to draw the line somewhere. So that's a legit criticism. I also don't think the insane, over the top, like social media censorship, I don't think that's necessary to create socialism. So guys, I have criticism of China too, but
you know what's funny about that? I actually don't even trip. I don't even trip off their censorship because I'm like, well, if you see, what do we always say? The U.S. is the most propagandized country in the world. And when you know that all those tech companies are based in Silicon Valley, which is only existent because the CIA wants it to exist, it kind of makes sense why you censor your people from being exposed to that fuck. Like, I almost agree with that. Like, I'm like, I agree with freedom of speech, but also I can't really knock for their purposes and what they're trying to achieve. I can't knock them for wanting to protect their people from the toxicity that is the U.S. algorithm. Like, I actually do understand that. But but like I said, beyond the China thing, we can move on. But beyond the China thing specifically, my issue, not my issue rather, but the conflict that doesn't make sense is even if we know what we know about capitalism is they love to tank their economy because the wealthy end up profiting the most. Like we see the largest transfer of wealth during depressions and recessions. But like, why in this particular case would you help the quote unquote communists that you supposedly hate to do that? That's what doesn't make sense.
Because they're not really communists. That's the thing.
So there's like, it's either they're not really communists or you're not, or you don't hate communists the way you say you do, right? Because that has to be that. Or it's not really about communism necessarily versus capitalism necessarily. Right. It's like that's an undertone of a greater plot that needs to be addressed. And I believe that plot is like what Missy said, the technocracy. Because that's not even talking about Hong Kong. Like, right? That's not even like talking about Hong Kong. Like how that's the whole thing that no one would like. Hong Kong and Taiwan in of itself are two issues that you kind of have to wrestle with regarding mainland China, because that's its own thing, right? Like that all has to be addressed within and you can't really address any of that substantively if you keep it only within the lens of capitalism versus communism. So I believe that the communism versus capitalism has a place in the discourse, obviously, but I do believe that that's a subplot of the greater technocracy. Like, why can't we have our communism the way that you so eloquently articulated, or other communists? But like, why can't we get there? It's like, everything that you're saying makes sense, Nick. Everything makes sense. So why aren't people accepting it? Why haven't we gotten there yet?
Banger after banger, my friends. I told you guys, the new era is different. I'm greatly enjoying this, my friends. I am greatly enjoying.
And can I just say that I enjoy very much that the three of us are good friends and we can have these disagreements in an adult way, and we can have a conversation where I've just learned something from the both of you, and we can, further those ideas, continue that. These are difficult conversations that need to happen, and we can have them. Yeah. You just need to just take a step back, and you don't have to get all crazy about it.
I love having the China conversation, especially with right wingers, because right wingers like, why do you even like China? Why do you even like China? Why you like China? China's capitalist. I'm like, okay, if it's capitalist, how about you agree with us?
Right?
How about we
like, do you hate them because they're communists, or you mad at me for liking them because they're capitalists? I'm confused. Like,
labels, y'all. This is why. This is exactly why. Because nobody really understands what any of those words mean. This is what, like, everybody's ism is different. Everybody's interpretation of their ism is different. And none of it is comprehensive. And I'm just not interested in marrying myself to any one ideology, because I think that there's some things about libertarianism that I like. There's, like the live and let live and all of that stuff. There's some stuff that they talk about that I disagree with them on a whole host of issues, but they bring something to the table that I think that if you are an adult and you're open-minded and you're actually willing to examine what furthers the human race in the best direction, you're willing to look at ideas from anywhere, whatever works, whatever will work,
including capitalism. Yeah, capitalism in itself is like make it like a free market of ideas and free exchange of products, whatever that capital may be, you know, in the US money, but a free exchange of product without interference, as long as it's truly free, is a great thing. But the problem with capitalism as we know it is that the capital is money specifically. And from the beginning of time, or at least from the beginning of the US, or really in general, but definitely the United States, money was not allowed to, the capital of capitalism was not allowed to be earned by everybody in an equal for like with any level of equity.
The ism was co-opted. And that's what always happens. And that's why I don't do labels, y'all. That is why.
Exactly. I think big cap energy. Big Capricorn energy. Don't do labor.
I think the profit motive is a horrific way to design your society around, which is why anti-capitalist. But you guys notice that I am more than happy to be in community with my sister Misty and Niko, because the only thing that
don't get it twisted.
No, hopefully you didn't misunderstand what I was saying there. But what I'm saying is, you don't have to call yourself a communist to be in community with me, because I'm here to trick you guys into engaging in class struggle. You don't have to call yourself a Marxist. If you engage in class struggle, I'm tricking you motherfuckers. I don't care. You guys support the shit I support. I don't care what you call yourself.
Right?
You engaging in class struggle with me. You don't like labels. Okay.
That's like my libertarian friends. Like they don't we don't agree on a lot, but they want to free Assange. They want to end the wars. There's a lot of things that we agree on. And so yes, I want to get some shit done. I don't care what ism you subscribe to. Don't give a fuck. If you want to help get some shit done,
where I'm at right now, and guys, you understand that there's always debates within even communists. Like a lot of communists will.
I see.
They will say.
Well, they will like, sorry, y'all, my bad. But these communists, boy, they be debating.
We be going to war with
each other. I'm like,
we go to war.
Because
we should organize with only communists. There's some communists who say we only should organize with communists. I disagree with those people. We should get people to engage in class struggle. If they engage in class struggle and they understand class antagonisms, which both of you guys do, I think those are the most important prerequisites, whether they call themselves a communist or not. And there are communists who disagree with me, guys, on that. There's some people that believe.
Yeah, that's crazy. See, that's ridiculous. Do you read theory, bro? First of all, I read a lot of it. I went to UNC, but my point is, I've read enough socialist and communist theory to know that the shit that y'all be arguing about is fucking pointless. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that it is literally about class solidarity and means of production. That is the most important conclusion, because that is what controls all, and everything else is just like it's peripheral symptoms of a hyper-capitalist or a white supremacist. Like all that shit is like, because we don't control the means of productions and there's no class solidarity. All of this shit wouldn't happen if we control the means of production with class solidarity. And that's what it comes down to. And I don't got time to be debating. Like I just can't stand it. I don't like debating nuance and it's the semantics of bullshit.
It's the exclusionary aspect of it too, because they don't want to have conversations with people they don't agree with. How do you expect to get anything done if you don't convince people who don't already agree with you that your ideas are better? That's how you win. You have to be willing to engage in those conversations and expose people to your thought process and your ideas and convince them that your ideas are better. Anybody who's like, it turns their, those MAGA people are beneath me. I refuse to engage in like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, if you want to hang out in your safe space and feel smugly superior, do you, boo-boo? I'm not.
That's 35-40% of the country. I'm not gonna talk. Hold up, mother. Right? You kind of need them, don't you?
Yeah, you would. Yeah,
you can't. You can't control the means of the production because you know it's all about the proletariat controlling the means of production. I know that sometimes we don't like to talk about it, but you know the proletariat also includes people you don't like.
Yeah.
I mean.
Oh my God, Niko, the amount of fake comments on Twitter, I have to tell
that. Oh my God, don't get me started on online comments. Please do not. Please do not.
Guys know, I've been done with those people. Like, we doing our own thing. I'm gonna read, because guys, I'm not perfect on Marxist. I've only been a theory reading Marxist for 3 years. It's a very complicated science. That's why there's so much debating about it. It's very complicated. So I'm like, all right, we're gonna try our best. I'm gonna try to understand theory. I'm gonna have Marxists on to try and teach me that as well. But the most important thing to me is if you're engaging in class struggle, if you're a class ally, because that's the first step to convince the masses that we need communism. Now I'm talking to my audience here now, guys. To convince the masses that we need communism and getting anti-capitalism, we have to get people to understand that we're in the same class solidarity war. There's nothing more cringeworthy to me than these poor white people who think they're capitalists. I am a cap. No, you're a worker, motherfucker. You're not a capitalist. What fucking capitalist are you on?
Well, and you also need to know your audience. Like, if you come at these people with words like communism, their brains are going to shut off immediately.
You gotta know that.
You have to know your, like, when I go on libertarian podcasts to talk about free Assange, I make sure to tailor my message to a libertarian audience. That's what you have to do. If you care about something, you need to make sure that you recognize who your audience is and try to package your ideas in a way that is most appealing to that audience. It is not complicated. And it doesn't mean that you're betraying your principles or you're not. No, you're just engaging in conversation and meeting somebody where they're at in order to bring them in. And it's not that hard. We have a lot in common, y'all. I live surrounded by Trump supporters. I am in small town Ohio. There's nothing but Trump supporters everywhere. They're everywhere. And they're not bad people. They have just been propagandized to be mad at the wrong things and the wrong people. And that's just the reality of it. And but they're not unreachable. A lot of them agree with things like healthcare and ending wars and stuff like that. But if you package it, you come at them in some condescending, do you read theory, bro? Like, it's just so dumb.
Well, people know
can I say
our job is to teach people theory. I'll pass it to you, Nico. But
no,
our job
go ahead, Nick. Say what you're about to say. Say what you're about to say, because it's probably what I'm literally about to say.
Over you, so you go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, Marxists or communists, y'all need to maybe consider the fact that Marxism or communism is something you teach. It is not a barometer for who you engage with.
Yeah.
And if you actually, because, like, I don't know why people are under this impression. Because I mean, once again, if you're real theory, bro, what do they talk about exclusivity? If it's constantly talking about work class solidarity and then exposing the ways that the class is divided, how do you then become an instrument of division in the name of the ideology that is avidly against division? You get what I'm saying? So maybe just consider that communism or Marxism or however you want it, or Leninism, whatever side of the communism world you're on, maybe consider that this theory is to be taught. It is not to be used as a barometer.
I've been learning a lot about China like the last 2 years, and I'm very impressed by what I learned. There are definitely people who know more about it with me, and I would love to see like those criticisms going against like a Carl Zai, you know what I mean? And I'm learning more. I find China extremely interesting, and I'm gonna continue to learn more. You know
it's a very complicated country, right? I think like it's for the same reason that a lot of people are interested in the United States, because like the United States is not monolithic or homogenous in ideology, really not in economy. And people might think it is because perhaps propaganda, movies, whatever, or even they're just not well traveled. But like, you can't, like Missy said, you can't talk to somebody in Ohio and assume that they have the same like thought process as somebody in New York or the same mentality as somebody in South Florida. Like, it's so complicated that's what makes it so interesting. And that's one of the, I like talking about China, because I want to hear everybody's opinions, because it's so vast, like the conversation of China, that you can only be an expert in parts of it. So like, and everybody that I've talked to that's like educated has new information to add to the China conversation, which I think is important, because like you can't ignore the fact that they're here, bro. Like, China's here.
Do you guys remember the International Leftist Coalition panels I used to do with Josana, with Kareem and Peter? They are professors who live in China. They live in China, and we used to do shows where they say, "Bro, everything you talk about China is bullshit," and they would come on the show and debunk all this. That when I was like very interested, like, wait, what? Like, it was crazy. Like, it was like 2 years ago. I'll tell you, this is when I was starting getting interested in China. Like, I already knew they was lying about China. I already knew that, but I became obsessed because that when they was like, I had people who live in China. I know I haven't been there. I plan on going there one day, but I talked to people who from these countries. Like, these people live in, like, and even Peter and Kareem, it was like, even the narrative around the lockdowns in China, they was like, even that was false in the West. And I was like, wait, what? Anyway, but I'm gonna have them back home. I'm gonna reach out back to Betby. It's been for a while. They literally in China, and it was blowing my mind, Niko. We have the old school subscribers for a long time who remember those International Leftist Coalition panels. You guys remember that, right? Like, they would be on the panel, the same show, like, bro, what? Like, holy shit! And that one thing that sparked my interest, and I'm trying to learn more. I will say unapologetically, I'm not a shill. I am not opposed to criticism of China, but I am deeply impressed. I will not hide by it. I won't hide from that. I am deeply impressed with what they are doing. I am deeply impressed with how they lift so many people out of poverty, the infrastructure they're building, the fact that they're uniting the world against the dollar. I will acknowledge that China criticism, but I will never apologize for the fact that I'm just impressed.
Brazil has a fantastic relationship with China.
Hey, Niko, my dream is to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil. That's always been a dream of mine. And if these motherfuckers take the dollar, bro, I'll be down there.
I'm on the way
with you, bro.
E aí, tô vendo.
And with Didi Geopolitics, she covered this a lot as well. So tomorrow's show on Tuesday. I gotta check the time on the calendar. I think it's noon, the same time. We're gonna be talking about this as well because I've been reading on a lot of this over the weekend. Like, what are you guys doing? They even threatening to put sanctions on. No, I remember Donald Trump, and this is gonna be part of my presentation. Donald Trump threatened sanctions on countries who de-dollarized. Bro, Trump is trying to fucking he's gonna ruin the dollar because if they put sanctions on China because they're supporting Russia, that sends a message to every country in the world that the United States will punish them based on their foreign policy decisions and based on who they build with, which means people will more likely to get rid of their dollar, invest in Chinese and Russian. Like the only
incentive that he would have to do that with the idea that it would be successful is if the yuan was not that popular. But if all these countries would convert, you can't use the argument that we're going to sanction you if you de-dollarize. They're like, well, all the homies is already using the yuan. Why? Shit. Okay, fine. That's fine. Sanction us with the dollar that we're not fucking using. Hey, all right. It's just going to make what also is going to happen is the ruble is going to become stronger too. And they're not thinking about that. So
in China and Russia, I got to read more about it because I'm still preparing the segment technically. But Russia and China, they just signed this new trade agreement where they only will be exchanging with wands and pebbles. I always read that. I always feel weird saying this. But the Chinese currency and the Russian ruble, they had an agreement. I'll explain more in detail when I do my segment, probably tomorrow or sometime this week, where they're going to have only exchanges in Chinese and Russian currency.
Wow, that's huge. Big.
That's this been pretty recent. So that combined with the sanctions threat by Trump, what Biden's doing now, bro. I'm looking to Sao Paulo right now. I'm looking to Rio.
Hey, hit me up when you're ready to come visit, dog. Look, I'm telling you.